The rain came down in silver sheets, slicing through the silence of the Montana wilds. The river roared between them, a restless witness to a storm older than the sky itself. He stood there, drenched and trembling, his head long gone, his breath coming heavy. She faced him from the opposite bank, her soaked blouse clinging to her as if the past itself refused to let her go. "Elias," she said, her voice breaking through the rain like a gunshot softened by regret. "You shouldn't have come back." He stared at her, his jaw clenched, water dripping from his hair into his eyes. "I rode 100 miles to hear you say that," he answered, voice deep, hoarse, and trembling. "I thought maybe you'd still remember what we promised, before the fire, before he—" "Don't say his name," she cut in sharply. Her hand went to her chest, trembling. The world seemed to hold its breath. The trees swayed, the wind hissed, and between them the river swirled like a living ghost. She was a widow now. Everyone in town whispered it, the widow McLean, the woman who once carried a revolver under her corset and grief in her smile. But Elias knew better. He'd seen the fire in her eyes before the world burned down their dreams. He took a step forward, boots sinking into the muddy bank. "You told me once that love's a choice, not a promise," he said, his voice cracking. "So I'm choosing you, even now." She shook her head, tears mixing with rain. "You don't understand, Elias. There's no choosing when the ghosts still walk with you, when his blood still stains your hands." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. The truth hung there, raw, sharp, and unspoken. Elias's eyes softened, the anger fading into sorrow. "If I could trade my soul to undo that night, I would." "I don't need your soul," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need to know if there's still a man beneath that guilt." For a long moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, she stepped into the river, the water rising around her legs, her breath catching in the cold. Elias stared, torn between running to her and staying rooted in his shame. When she reached the middle, she looked up at him, rain dripping from her lashes, lips trembling as she whispered, "Will you stay? If I undress my pain before you?" The wind howled, and time froze. He didn't know if she meant her body, her soul, or the truth buried between them. But in that moment, Elias knew nothing would ever be the same again. Elias stepped into the river without a word. The cold bit into him like knives, but he didn't stop. Each step forward was a confession. Every ripple carried pieces of his guilt downstream. When he reached her, only the sound of rain and their ragged breaths filled the silence. "Then show me," she said softly, eyes glinting with something between fury and sorrow. "Show me who you are now." He hesitated, his fingers trembling as he reached up to touch her face. She didn't pull away. Her skin was cold, her lips trembling, but her eyes, those eyes still burned with the same wild defiance he fell in love with years ago. "You were supposed to leave," she whispered. "After everything, you were supposed to disappear like the others." "I tried," he said, "but every mile I rode, I still heard your voice. Every night I saw you standing in the doorway, waiting, even when you told yourself you'd stopped." She looked away, swallowing hard. "You think words can wash away what you did?" "No," he said quietly, "but maybe love can." Her breath caught. The river swirled around them, a cold witness to something fragile being reborn. The rain began to ease, falling in softer drops, as if heaven itself grew tired of punishing them. "Do you even know what you're asking?" she said. "If you stay, Elias, there's no going back. The town won't forgive. The dead won't rest. And her voice faltered, "I don't know if I can forgive you either." He leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "Then let me carry the part of your pain that still has my name on it." For the first time in years, she didn't fight the tears. They came like the rain had before, wild, cleansing, unstoppable. She let him hold her, even as her heart screamed for distance. They stood there, tangled in sorrow and memory, as if time had folded back on itself. The river calmed, the clouds broke, and a faint ray of light found them through the mist. "Elias," she finally said, her voice trembling, "if you truly mean to stay, then stay when the nights turn cruel again. Stay when the guilt returns. Stay when I push you away. That's the only promise I'll believe." He looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he smiled, not out of joy, but out of the quiet courage of a man who had already lost everything once. "I'll stay," he said, "even if it means standing in the rain for the rest of my life." She nodded slowly, almost afraid to believe him. And as the last drops of rain kissed the river, two broken souls began to find their way back to something that might, just might, be love again. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was heavier than thunder. The cabin on the hill stood alone, its chimney smoking faintly against the pale dawn. Inside, the widow sat by the window, watching Elias saddle his horse in the yard below. He moved slow, deliberate, a man haunted by what he carried inside. She tightened the shawl around her shoulders, whispering to herself, "You said you'd stay." He had stayed. Through the long, sleepless night, through the whispers of ghosts that clung to the walls. But she knew morning light always tests a promise made in darkness. When he came back in, the smell of wet earth and pine followed him. "The river's settled," he said quietly. "We should head into town before the trail floods again." Her eyes flickered. "You think the town wants to see us riding together? They'll see my guilt before yours, Elias. They always do." He sighed, removing his hat. "Then let them. I've run from truth long enough." For a moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled, throwing gold against her face. He saw on her expression the same strength that once scared him, the strength that made him fall. Finally, she turned to him. "You never told me what really happened that night." He froze. "The night of the fire, the night her husband died. It was the wound neither dared to touch." Elias lowered himself into a chair, voice rough as gravel. "He came looking for me, saw I took what was his. He was drunk, angry. I tried to walk away, but he drew first." Tears welled in her eyes. "And you shot him." "I shot to stop him," Elias said. "But the barn went up before I could drag him out. I swear I didn't mean." She slammed her hand against the table. "Don't you dare swear. You left him there, Elias. You left us." He stood, his voice rising. "I came back for you." The air between them sparked, alive with pain and memory. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the window panes. Finally, her shoulders slumped. "Maybe I asked you to stay because I wanted to believe there was still something good left in you. But now," he stepped closer, his voice softening, "there still is. It's standing right in front of you." She looked up, eyes red but steady. "Then prove it." A pause, the fire popped. "How?" he asked. "By facing what's coming," she whispered. "Because someone in town knows the truth, and they're riding here at dawn." The first light of dawn stretched across the valley, painting the mist gold. A single rider approached from the ridge, dark coat, steady gait, purpose in every movement. The widow watched from the porch, her breath shallow, while Elias stood behind her, revolver resting heavy in his hand. "Who is it?" he asked, though part of him already knew. Her lips trembled. "Marshal Kane, my husband's brother." The air turned to glass. The wind stopped. Even the birds refused to sing. Elias holstered the gun slowly, his pulse drumming in his ears. "Then it's time." The rider stopped 20 paces away. Dust rose around the hooves. Kane dismounted, tall and rigid, eyes cold as iron. "I knew I'd find you here, Elias. Took you long enough to crawl out of hiding." Elias stepped forward, voice low but steady. "I didn't come to hide. I came to face what I should have faced years ago." Kane's gaze shifted to his sister-in-law. "And you took him in, after what he did." Her hands shook, but she met his eyes. "He didn't kill your brother out of hate, Kane. It was an accident. The fire." "Don't," the marshal snapped. "Don't try to wash away blood with words." Elias raised his hands slowly. "Then take me, but don't drag her into it. She's suffered enough." Kane's jaw clenched. For a moment, the world held its breath, 3 lives suspended between justice and mercy. Then, to everyone's surprise, the widow stepped forward. "If you want him," she said softly, "you'll have to go through me." Kane's expression faltered. "You'd betray your husband's memory for this man?" Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice stayed strong. "No, I'm honoring it, because my husband died in anger, and I refuse to live the rest of my life in it." Silence. The sun crested the hills, and light spilled across the clearing. Kane looked at Elias, really looked at him, and saw not a killer, but a man drowning in regret. Finally, he lowered his gun. "Then go. But if you ever step back into my town, I won't hesitate." Elias nodded once. "You'll never have to see me again." As the marshal rode away, the widow turned to Elias, her eyes soft with exhaustion and something like peace. "You kept your word, she whispered. He smiled faintly. I stayed. She reached out, touching his face gently. Then maybe now, we both can start over. The morning wind rose, carrying the scent of wet earth and ash. The past still lingered, but for the first time, it no longer ruled them. They walked toward the river together, hand in hand, leaving behind the ghosts that once defined them. And as the scene faded into sunlight, her voice lingered softly, almost like a prayer. Stay, not because you must, but because you've finally learned how to be free.